Code number NA03-50. Copyright 2003, all rights reserved. The Narcotics Anonymous World Services Incorporated presents Miracles and God Shots with Gina S. from New York. Recorded live at the 30th World Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. Held July 3rd through 6, 2003, in San Diego, California. Now let's begin this informative session.
Gina S. from New York.
Hi, family. I'm an addict named Gina. I got my name changed. I'm so used to being Gina B. When I saw Gina S., I didn't think it was me. And I know that doesn't, mean anything to a lot of people, but I know this sounds crazy. Being Gina B. has, been my identity for the last 20 years. And so when I saw Gina S., I was thinking maybe I should have hyphenated my name when I got married, but I didn't think that Gina B. S. But I'll tell you this, it's an honor any time that you're asked to speak on behalf of Narcotics Anonymous. It's a real special honor to be asked to speak at a world convention and to be asked to share at the 50th birthday humbles me. My thanks and my heartfelt gratitude to those who have come before me to forge this fellowship and to give me a place that I can call home and that I can come to recover. For those who have tirelessly kept the doors open and who were never too tired. It was Super Bowl night. It was raining. They didn't want to be there. Thank you so much. And I'll get this out of the way that I'm feeling very uncentered tonight. And I know what's going on. And normally I come up to a podium, I'm not feeling, don't get me wrong, there's always butterflies in your stomach. I don't care how many times you do it. But I'm feeling uncentered tonight, and I'm thinking about the topic, and I'm thinking about miracles and, wanting to come up with the ego and wow you with something, that's going to have you walking away. And the reality is that the miracles happen every day. And they're not things that come off like fireworks, and they're not things that always knock you over on your ass. The miracles in Narcotics Anonymous are standing outside and seeing tens and 20,000s of addicts who haven't used today. In San Diego, no cops, no arrests, no fights. And you know what? So far, from what I've seen at least, we've been real responsible, acceptable, and productive members of society here to the citizens of San Diego. When I came to Narcotics Anonymous in 1983, I saw the word God. And I was waiting to sit here for a little bit and finally find out that you really were a cult. I'm an addict and I'm a New Yorker. And we're just we're skeptical about everything. And I'm waiting for the time when I see the God that you're going to come out and start handing me the flowers and telling me to go hand them out at the airport. And I didn't really understand anything when I got here about what living a spiritual life was about. I thought that spirituality was like being a nun. I thought that spirituality was about the people who went up into the mountains and lived in caves and prayed all day. And it took me a long time here to understand that the spirituality was in being the best person that I could be and in treating other people the way that I wanted to be treated. It was about doing the things that were so contrary to my personality, like stopping for 5 minutes to hold the door for somebody when I'm in a hurry and my inclination is to let it slam in your face. It was about picking up that phone at 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody was hurting because I knew I needed to go up to work, at 6 o'clock, but somebody had done it for me. These were the things that I started to learn, and my sponsor started to teach me about God as she took me through the steps, and she took me to a third step, and she taught me about having a relationship with God. And as I got up to the 12th step and I was looking for that spiritual awakening, what she said to me is that my spirit would always continue to awaken as long as I stayed in this process. But that what I was going to have the privilege of having were spiritual experiences. And she described a spiritual experience to me as that rare moment in time when you were in the right place at the exact moment that you were supposed to be there. You were right where your God had you, and you knew exactly why. And for anybody who's ever been in that situation, that you have been in the exact place that you were supposed to be at the exact moment that you were supposed to be there, and God revealed to you the reason why He placed you there at that moment, the feeling that you have inside of you of seeing the miracles in front of you, and the miracles came slowly. They came in small things, like realizing that one day I woke up and I went the whole day and I didn't think about using at all. And I don't know if any of you ever remember that first day that you realized that you went to bed that night and you didn't think about using, that the obsession had finally been lifted. And as I stayed here, I found that my relationships with my family started to heal. My father didn't speak to me for 10 years before I got clean. And he didn't speak to me for the first year and a half that I was clean. And I saw that relationship start to heal through the miracle and the power of the steps. That today I'm real close to my dad, and I'm real close to my family. I saw the miracle of being able to start to finally be able to hold a job. I was somebody who came in here, I was capable of earning money in 2 positions, either on my back or on my knees. Let's get honest. That was my profession. I hit the streets when I was 15 years old. I lost my virginity when I was 11 years old because I heard that line that every female has heard at one point in her life. He said, "If you love me, you'll do it." And I wanted him to love me, so I did it. And I went overnight in school from being somebody that was an unknown to being that girl that you wrote about on the bathroom walls and your mother told you not to hang around with because they'd talk about you like they talked about me if you hung out with me. And they used to call my house and tell my mother your daughter was a whore. And they used to write on the bathroom walls that Gina Piesco was a whore. And I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I kept doing it. And I didn't know how to stop. Because for 5 minutes, if you held me and you paid attention to me and I thought that you loved me, it made it all worth it. Because I didn't know how to ask you just to hold me and hug me and love me. So when I was 15 years old, I realized that I'd been giving it away for 4 years and that people paid you for this. I didn't know why I gave it away for free. And, I hear people sometimes talk about, that their best thinking got them here. I got to tell you, my best thinking never could have come up with a place like Narcotics Anonymous. My best thinking at 15 was, you get paid for this. This is insane. And I came in here doing all of those things. I don't know sometimes what we expect from the newcomers. Of course I walked in here and hung out with the men. Of course I came in here and I walked right over to them wearing skirts cut just below my ass and the fishnet stockings. Of course I didn't go near you women. Why would you expect, because I put down the drugs and walked into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, that I was going to change all that much? It took people to love me, to take me by the hand, to walk me over to the women, to take my phone number, to call me. It took people to get a cup of coffee for me because I didn't have the self-esteem to walk across the room and get it for myself. People didn't say, if you want my number, you'll ask me for it. People didn't say, if you want it, you're going to have to get it. People didn't say, if you really want to stay clean, you'll do the footwork. I didn't have the self-esteem, and you knew it, and I'm grateful that you recognized it. And I hope that I never get self-righteous and arrogant enough to forget what it's like to walk into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous on those first few days and not know anybody, somebody whose ass had been rejected and beaten into the street for so long that I wasn't willing to take a chance and have you people do it to me again. Today, there's really one miracle that I want to tell you about. More than anything else. It's going to be a little bit of a long story, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail, and I hope that you can follow me. I'm married in recovery for the second time, and on Wednesday I celebrated my 10th wedding anniversary. And I don't know if that impresses anybody else, but I'll tell you what, it impresses the shit out of me. My first husband in recovery, I left at 7 years clean for somebody else. I did not know how to be faithful. I did not know how to be a partner. I didn't know any of these things. With some clean time, it did not make those things go away. And I cheated on my ex-husband, and I didn't have the guts to leave him until I had somebody else's bags packed by the door, ready to move in as soon as he moved out. And we talk about God shots. You know, the God shot in all of that was that through 11-step work, it had become really clear to me for a long time that God's will for me was to finally learn how to live by myself. And I wasn't willing to do that. And, you know, I don't hear a lot of us talk about it, but sometimes when I talk about it, I see a lot of heads nodding, so I know I'm not unique. I was 29 years old, and I had never lived by myself. I had gone from my mother's house to a man's house to another man's house to another man's house, and I had never lived on my own. And God had made it abundantly clear to me that it was time for me to start to get the self-esteem and self-respect to learn that I could take care of myself and that I was okay without having somebody attached to my hip. And I kept saying, "That's nice, God. Good plan. I'll think about it." And he kept saying, no, Gina, you don't understand. This is what I want you to do. And I kept saying, yeah, okay, I'll think about it. And you know, 11-step work is very simple. We have two choices. We either, through prayer and meditation, work on accepting God's will for us in our lives, or we take it kicking and screaming. But the bottom line in my life is God's always gotten what he wants and not necessarily what I want. And you see, that man turned around and left me for somebody else because God was going to tell me that I was going to be alone finally. And I have to tell you, at 29 years old, I was pretty okay with coming into the rooms and telling you that I slept with the light on and the teddy bear because I had never lived alone and I was afraid to turn out the light. And that was okay. You know? And when I finally started to be okay with myself, when I finally started to feel comfortable, it was at that time that God put somebody in my life. Somebody whom I never would have chosen, somebody whom I never would have picked for myself because he didn't fit the bill. He didn't have any money. He didn't have a good job. I was 9 years clean. He was 2.5, a year out of prison and a year and a half behind the walls. And you know what I finally found? I finally found what I'd been looking for my whole life. I found somebody who loved me for exactly who I was and not in spite of me. And 10 years later, he still loves me for who I am and not in spite of me. And I'm grateful, and I love you, David. And it was about 10 years ago this month that we were going to have a child. And I walked into the obstetrician's office, and I went for my normal monthly checkup, and they put the stethoscope down on my stomach, and they moved it around, and they moved it around, and the doctor finally looked up, and he shook his head at me, and he said, "I'm sorry, but your baby's dead." And I walked out of the office, and I walked into the parking lot, and I stood there, and I held on to my husband, and we just cried. And he finally said, "What would you like to do?" And I thank God that I'd been here long enough to hear you tell me repeatedly through a program of repetition, when you don't know what else to do, you take your ass to a meeting. And I walked into the meeting, and it happened to be a women's meeting that night, and I allowed you to love me, and I allowed you to hold me, and I allowed you to tell me it was going to be okay. And you know, about 3 years earlier, this convention down in Texas had asked me to share, and I couldn't get down there that weekend. I was working, and I said, "If you ever think to ask me again, I would love to come." And I didn't hear from them for 3 years, and to be honest, I'd forgotten all about them. But that night that I came back from the doctor's office and we came back from the meeting finally, There was a message on the answering machine that night from that convention 3 years later. You see, right on time, God always lets me know at the lowest points in my life that if I just hold on and don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle, that the blessings of life aren't over yet. Don't give up, and there's more to come. Stay in your seat. You're in the storm. Hold on and rock through it. It's going to get better on the other side if you just stick and stay. For the next 7 years, I tried to have a child. For the next 7 years, I finally reached out to a power greater than myself, and I went to the doctors, and I went through 3 inseminations, and I went through 3 rounds of in vitro fertilization, and I finally had the doctors in New York tell me that it was time to stop, and I needed to accept that I wasn't ever going to have any biological children. And I was so mad at God. I felt so damaged, knowing that I was never going to have a baby. And I remembered my husband some years ago had been diagnosed with a lung tumor. And I remember them telling me that they were going to have to open him up and do surgery, and that it looked like it was pretty serious. And I called a good friend of mine in recovery that night, and I'll never forget her answering the phone, and she heard my voice and she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, David's going to die. I have to tell you, by the way, this is why I need a sponsor and why I need you. I don't know if anybody else needs a sponsor. I need a sponsor. If you called me up and told me this, I would tell you, we don't know what's going on. Let's take it easy. Let's not assume the worst. Let's pray. Let's have some faith. Let's stay in the moment. I'm calling the funeral home and picking the casket out already. So she picked up the phone and I said, David's really sick and he's going to die and it's not fair and I'm clean 12 years and I answer the phone in the middle of the night and I sponsor women and I do all the service and I don't deserve this. And she said, Gina, when we get off the phone, get down on your hands and knees and thank God you've never gotten in life what you really deserve. Yeah, it's one of the few times in life I had not much to say either. And I am grateful for the mercy of a loving God that I have not gotten in life what I really deserve. But the interesting thing about it is that my husband went for a pre-op scan. And, the doctor didn't know we were in recovery at that point. We didn't tell him. And we picked up the phone and we called him to find out what the results of the pre-op were. And he said to me, "Do you have a God in your life?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Because we can't find the tumor anymore." But his CAT scan's clean. These are the things that have happened that if I hadn't been there, to stay and to keep coming and to stick around for the miracle. Well, the miracle of my son today is when I was told by the doctors to stop trying, and I told my sponsor how angry at God I was, she finally said to me, "Do you want to have a baby or do you want to be pregnant?" I had to stop and think. And she said, there's more ways to be a mother without being pregnant. And I had to sit and write about it for a while because I realized that what I was doing was that I wanted to be pregnant because God was telling me that I wasn't going to get pregnant and I was telling him that I was. So I wrote about it and I prayed on it and I said to her, "I want to be a mom." And she said to me, "Okay, why don't you think about adopting?" I went and saw a lawyer and I asked him, "How long does it take to adopt?" And he said to me, about 1.5 years. And I said, "Great, thanks." Came home, threw the paperwork on the kitchen counter and forgot about it and said, "Thank you, God, another dead end." So we went and did this on a Monday. That Sunday, my husband, now here's where you got to follow me. My husband calls me up and he he's working tickets for the railroad, and he says to me, you know what, I'm going to close the ticket office. Now, mind you, when you just close the ticket office and walk off the job, you inconvenience a whole lot of people, right? So I said, why? He said, just be ready in 10 minutes. I'm going to come and pick you up. I'm reading the newspaper, and they're doing this land auction up at the hotel. Let's go see what it's about. Okay. So we go up to this hotel, and we walk in, and the man stops me at the door. He's got the velvet gates, the ropes up, and he says, let me see your certified check. Now, you know how we get. Somebody tells us we're not welcome somewhere. And I can't lie to you and say that this was really Narcotics Anonymous recovery in action. I acted like an asshole. I said, where in your ad does it say certified check? Your friends all got in. This thing is rigged, isn't it? Anyway, I made such a scene. He said, please, Mrs. Skelton, your personal check will be fine. Come on in. Now, mind you, my personal check, I didn't have a dime in my checking account. Why I'm in a land auction, I have no idea. So they auction off these 2 pieces of land, and the third one goes up, and I'm watching my husband across the room, and the next thing I know, I see his hand going like this, and I'm like mouthing across the room, what the f*** are you doing? And they call out another price, and he raises his hand again, and I can't believe he's doing this. So they go 3 times sold, and the next thing I know, this guy is shoving papers in front of me, and he wants $108,000 for 5 acres in East Bumfuck Nowhere, New York. I'm like, are you crazy? So I sign the papers, I walk out of there, and I'm thinking, I can't believe we did this, right? He's so sick about it, he throws up. Anyway, now we start scrambling, right, to get loans and mortgages and see if we can complete this land deal. So 2 weeks later, I'm supposed to go to the speaker jam in New Jersey. And my worst character defect is procrastination. I never tell my husband anything. So he's working till 5 o'clock that Saturday, and he comes home, and he walks in the door after he's been up, all day, and I say to him, I'm supposed to be speaking in Jersey in an hour. And he's like, what? I said, I'm supposed to be speaking in New Jersey in an hour. So he gives me the sigh, and he gets in the car, and we're driving down the Garden State Parkway. We're going over to the speaker jam, and he is cussing me the whole way. God damn it, why don't you ever put it on the board? See, he bought me this chalkboard, right, thinking that I was going to write whatever we were doing on the chalkboards. So now I just don't write it on the chalkboard. So he's cussing me the whole way about how I never tell him what we're doing, and God damn it, and he's working, and yada yada. And we get down to the speaker jam, and they got a basketball tournament going on. They got a fish fry. They got all this stuff happening, and people are walking out of the meeting in droves, okay? They're like knocking themselves out to get out of there, and I'm thinking, God, why am I here? And I shared that 19 days earlier we had gone to the attorney to talk about adoption. And a man I had never seen before walked up to my husband and said, there's a young addict in our area who just got out of rehab, and she's pregnant. And she knows that she can't keep the baby. Can I give her your number? And everything that fell into place, because we didn't have the money for the attorney. And when we finally closed that land deal, I put it right up for sale. And all the $22,000 that the attorney wanted, that I looked at him and laughed and told him it might as well be $22 million. That land made $22,000 when it sold, and all of the bills were paid. And if you think on my best day that I ever could have put all of those things into motion and planned them to work out so beautifully and so simply and fall into place exactly how they were supposed to. And my son Connor is going to be 3 years old in September. And I know that all you promised me ever was freedom from active addiction. I know that you didn't promise me whiter teeth and fresher breath and, and I was going to meet my partner of my dreams here. But I can't ever begin to thank you in gratitude for everything that you have given me back. I can't ever begin to put into words the miracle of seeing God work in my life and the things that he has been able to do for me when I have stepped back and allowed him to, when I have taken myself out of the way. And I'll tell you, through this young addict, I saw unconditional love in action, to see somebody who loved this child she had never seen before and had never met, to love him enough to give him a shot at a life that she knew that she couldn't offer him. And the opportunity for me to be a mom. And that's what I see here. The miracles of just putting down the substance, of staying clean and living in this process. And one last thing that I'd just like to mention, because there's so many New Yorkers in the room, and it's something that has certainly changed my life, and a shot of God. I guess I was clean like over 18 years, and I heard just for today and stay in the moment, and I heard it, and I said it, and I spoke it, and I didn't live it, and I couldn't get out of my own head all the time, and I couldn't stay past the day and not look at tomorrow. And then something happened over a year and a half ago. I was in Manhattan on September 11th. I was sitting in my office a little before 9 o'clock, and my sister-in-law called me, and she said, a plane hit the Trade Center. So I looked outside that day. It was a beautiful New York summer day, not a cloud in the sky, and all I could think about was, how did he miss it, And I walked down to the window, and I saw the first tower on fire, and as we were standing there watching, I saw that plane come around and hit the second tower. And I knew that it wasn't an accident. And I realized at that moment that I was stuck on an island that was being attacked. And Manhattan's a big place, but geographically it's an island. And if you don't get on a bridge or a tunnel, you can't get off of it. And immediately everything started to shut down. And I said, God, please just let me get home. That baby I waited so long for was 8 days away from his first birthday. And I said, God, please just let me get out. And I went down to Grand Central, and I said, where is the next train going? And they said, go over to that gate and just get on it. And I didn't even know where it was going, and it wasn't going anywhere near my house, and I didn't care. And I got on the train, and I was on the train, and we were about halfway out, and they made an announcement, and they said, we were the last train to leave Grand Central. Grand Central's now closed. And I got home and saw those towers fall. And I realized that 3,000 people like me who just got up and go to work that day minding their own business weren't coming home that night. And it was on that day that I realized just how fucking unimportant most things in life that I make out to be major tragedies really are. All of the things that I make to be such big deals in life are so unimportant in the greater scheme of things. I am very, very grateful that I had the opportunity to walk out of there and be able to stand in front of you today. And I have done nothing since that day but remember that every day is a miracle. Every day I open my eyes is a God shot. Every day is a gift. And I am grateful to open up my eyes and have another day alive, and thank God for the opportunity. If nobody else has told you that they loved you today, let me tell you, at 5 after 11, somebody better have told your ass that they love you by now, or you're hanging out with the wrong people. But if nobody else told you that they love you, let me be the first to tell you from the bottom of my heart that I love you and God loves you. To please this weekend, if you have a resentment with somebody, let it go. If you owe some amends, get them over with and do them already. If there's somebody that you love who doesn't know it, tell them. Let us be a shining example of recovery to the people of this city. Because to a lot of the people out here in San Diego, we are Narcotics Anonymous. Whether you know it or not, we are all on the Public Information Committee this weekend. And our behavior and our actions are a direct reflection of our recovery in action. And I certainly hope that we walk away and the people of San Diego look back at us and say, man, those people in NA, they sure got it going on. I wish you all a wonderful convention, and I thank you so much for letting me share today. I love you. Thanks.
Let's thank Gina S. from New York for sharing her experience, strength, and hope. And that's Connor. I thank God that I had the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time to come up here and do this because it wasn't planned. And we'd like to ask someone to come and read Just for Today, a friend. Somebody is out here already. And I thank you once again. I'm Bobby Hart from the Bronx, New York.
Hi, I'm Terry. I'm an addict. Just for today, tell yourself, just for today, my thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs. Just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Just for today, I will have a program. I will try to follow it to the best of my ability. Just for today, through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life. Just for today, I will be unafraid. My thoughts will be on my new associations, people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. So long as I follow that way, I have nothing to fear.
Can we now form a circle so we can say the third step prayer?
This concludes the presentation, which was professionally recorded by Sound Images Incorporated of Englewood, Colorado. Area code 303-649-1811. Visit us on the web at www.soundimages.net.